An award-winning actor sits in front of a camera talking about a movie he made 30 years ago. A comedy, one of the biggest of his career, then without warning his voice cracks. He stops. He looks down, he's fighting back tears. This is Dustin Hoffman, two-time Oscar winner. A man known for playing tough, complicated characters, not a man known for breaking down on camera. But that's exactly what happened. He wasn't talking about a tragedy, he wasn't talking about loss. He was talking about Tootsie, the film where he played a man pretending to be a woman just to land a role. To the world, it was a comedy classic. To Dustin Hoffman, it was something else entirely. Something happened to him while making that film, something that quietly changed the way he saw the world and the way he saw himself. He never planned to talk about it. He kept it buried for years. But when he finally did, he couldn't hold it together. And when that footage resurfaced years later, it didn't just go viral. It stopped millions of people in their tracks. What did Dustin Hoffman see in that makeup chair that he could never unsee? And why, decades later, could he still barely speak about it without breaking down? By the early 80s, Hoffman wasn't just famous. He was one of the most respected actors alive. He'd already changed what a leading man could look like. In The Graduate, he played someone awkward, uncertain, nothing like the polished heartthrobs Hollywood was used to selling. Audiences loved him for it. In Midnight Cowboy, he disappeared so completely into a broken, desperate character that people forgot they were even watching a performance. Then came Kramer vs. Kramer, a raw story about fatherhood falling apart, and it won him his first Academy Award. He'd built his entire career on one thing: total commitment. He didn't just play characters, he became them, obsessed over them, studied every detail until it was real. So when he signed onto Tootsie, a comedy about a struggling actor who dresses as a woman to get work, everyone expected the usual. Some laughs, a likable performance, nothing more. No one expected what was coming. Before he'd even agreed to make the film, Hoffman needed to know something. Could he actually pass as a woman, not for laughs but for real? He didn't want the audience watching a man in a dress. He wanted them to see her, so the studio ran makeup tests. Hours of it. Hair, wardrobe, prosthetics, everything designed to transform him completely. He sat in that chair expecting to see someone new looking back at him. What he saw instead would stay with him for the rest of his life. Because somewhere in that process, something shifted. Something about his own reflection hit him harder than he ever expected. At the time, no one knew. He carried it in silence for years. But eventually, in a quiet, unguarded interview, he decided to finally tell the truth. And what he said would go on to reach millions of people who never saw it coming. The transformation wasn't quick. Hours of work, every detail obsessed over, trying to make the illusion complete. Hoffman later described watching the test footage for the first time. He expected to see a convincing woman. Instead, he was stunned by something else entirely. He wasn't attractive. Not the way he'd hoped, it caught him completely off guard. He turned to the makeup team and asked, could they make him more beautiful? Surely there was more they could do. Their answer hit harder than he expected. This was as good as it was going to get. For most actors, that's a shrug and a move on, a technical limit, nothing more. For Hoffman, it landed differently. He started thinking about who this woman actually was. Interesting, funny, smart, someone he genuinely liked. Then a harder thought crept in, one he couldn't shake. If he passed her at a party in real life, would he even talk to her? The honest answer disturbed him. He knew he wouldn't. Not because of who she was inside, but because of how she looked. That one realization cracked something open in him, and it wasn't something he could just walk away from. But what happened next changed the way he saw the rest of his life. He didn't leave it at the studio, he carried it home. That night, sitting with his wife, he tried to explain what had happened. He told her he had to make this film, not because it would be funny, not because it would sell tickets, because of what it had shown him about himself. She asked him why it mattered so much. And his answer, when he finally said it out loud, revealed just how deep this had gone. He admitted that if he passed this version of himself on the street, he wouldn't have looked twice. Not because she lacked anything, but because she didn't fit a standard he'd been raised to expect without ever questioning it. That was the moment the tears came, not on set, not during filming. At home, trying to put into words something that felt too big to say out loud. He began to understand how many genuinely remarkable women he may have overlooked in his own life. Not because of who they were, but because of a standard drilled into him before he even knew it was there. For a man whose whole career was built on seeing people clearly, this was a gut punch. He hadn't been seeing women clearly at all. And the deeper he sat with that thought, the harder it became to separate the character from the truth. She wasn't just a role anymore. She had become a mirror. But the full weight of that moment wouldn't reach the public for another 30 years. For decades, Hoffman kept it mostly to himself. Tootsie became a beloved classic. Audiences laughed. Critics praised it, the nominations piled up. But underneath all of it, he was carrying something the world didn't know about. Then in an interview recorded for the American Film Institute, he decided to finally say it out loud. He described the chair, the shock of his own reflection, the conversation with his wife. And as he spoke, his composure started to slip. His voice wavered. He paused, visibly trying to hold it together. For a moment, it looked like he might not get through it at all. Then he said something that stopped the room cold. Tootsie, to him, was never really a comedy. For a man known for control, for decades of careful, calculated performances, this was raw, unfiltered. Nothing like a rehearsed answer. No one expected this from someone like him. And no one in that room had any idea this quiet, cracked confession would one day be seen by millions of people who'd never even watched the film. Years passed before that interview found its second life. Then, out of nowhere, the footage resurfaced online, and it spread fast. News outlets picked it up, talk shows replayed it, it was everywhere. Suddenly, a decades-old comedy was being talked about in a completely different way. People weren't just remembering it as a funny movie anymore. They were watching one of Hollywood's most respected actors confront, on camera, something he never expected to admit: how deeply beauty shapes the way women are seen. And how blind even a thoughtful man could be to it. For a lot of viewers, it hit close to home. Some saw it as rare honesty from a powerful man admitting his own blind spot. Others were struck by how human it felt: an Oscar winner, undone not by scandal, but by a truth about himself he never wanted to face. But the truth behind this moment was even more surprising than it first seemed. Hoffman wasn't chasing headlines. He wasn't performing regret. He wasn't apologizing for anything. He was simply admitting that something in him had changed, and that admitting it had cost him something. That kind of vulnerability from someone at his level is rare. And that's exactly why the clip refused to disappear. Today, that interview still resurfaces, still gets discovered by someone new every few months watching it for the very first time. Tootsie is still remembered as a classic. But for many, it's remembered as something more now. The film that quietly forced one of Hollywood's biggest stars to face his own blind spots about beauty and about how women are seen. He never tried to turn it into something bigger than it was. He just told the truth and let the tears say the rest. Sometimes the most powerful moment in Hollywood isn't a scandal, it's honesty. So tell me, did this surprise you? Did you know this story before today? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this hit you the way it hit me, subscribe. There's more stories like this one coming.